The sheriff's voice cut through the Texas heat like a blade. "You have 5 minutes to step away from that truck, or you're under arrest." My hands froze on the oak rocking chair I'd inherited from my late mother. Sweat dripped down my neck, and my golden retriever, Rusty, barked wildly from the cab of my U-Haul. Across the gravel driveway stood Evelyn Harper, arms crossed, her platinum blonde hair pulled tight, a smug grin on her face as she clutched her phone. She'd called the cops, claiming I was stealing from a house I'd just bought. My house. The ink on the closing papers wasn't even dry. "My name is Elizabeth Monroe, and this is the story of how I fought to claim my dream home in Willow Bend Estates, a quiet subdivision 45 minutes outside Austin. It's a tale of harassment, vandalism, and a neighbor who thought she could bully me off my own land. But I didn't back down, and what unfolded will make you question how far someone will go to hold on to power. 11 years as an ER nurse in Austin had worn me down. The sirens, the double shifts, the chaos. I was done. I dreamed of a peaceful life, waking to birdsong instead of traffic. One evening, I stumbled across a listing for a ranch-style house on 14 acres. It had a sagging barn, a wraparound porch, and a price I could afford with my savings. I drove out to Willow Bend the next weekend, a tidy community where neighbors synced their lawn mowing and HOA rules kept everything picture perfect. A sign at the entrance read, "Willow Bend Estates, pride in ownership since 1995. That should have been my first warning. At the open house, I met Evelyn. She was pruning roses across the street, her eyes narrowing as I stepped out of my car. "Can I help you?" she called, her tone sharp. I smiled, introduced myself, and mentioned I was viewing the property. She didn't smile back. "I wasn't told about any showings," she said, wiping her gloves. I brushed it off. Small towns can be wary of outsiders. The house was perfect, with creaky floors and a faint musty smell, but it felt like home. I made an offer the next day, closed 3 weeks later, and bought Rusty a tiny cowboy hat to celebrate. Move-in day started with promise. I pulled up at 8 a.m., U-Haul loaded, Rusty snoozing beside me. Then I saw Evelyn, standing like a sentinel, watching me. I waved. She didn't. I started unloading my mother's rocking chair and some boxes when I heard her voice, shrill and accusing. "Yes, officer, there's a theft in progress. She's emptying the house." I've never seen her before. My stomach dropped. I shouted, "This is my house." She ignored me, painting me as a criminal to the dispatcher. 10 minutes later, 2 sheriff's cruisers roared up. Deputies jumped out, hands on holsters. "Ma'am, put the item down and show ID," one barked. Rusty, sensing the tension, nudged the truck window open and leapt out, racing toward me. "Loose dog," the second deputy yelled, drawing his gun. My knees buckled. I fumbled for my wallet, heart pounding, as Evelyn smirked, filming the chaos. 5 agonizing minutes passed before my realtor, Tom Bradley, arrived, pale and flustered, with closing documents proving I owned the property. The deputies apologized, but Evelyn just scoffed. "She doesn't belong here," she muttered, storming off. I thought that was the end, but it was only the beginning. The next morning, a neighbor, Clara Thompson, knocked on my door with a plate of pecan cookies. "Don't let Evelyn scare you," she said. "She's harassed newcomers before. She was kicked off the HOA board last year for poisoning someone's garden over aesthetic violations." I was stunned. Clara's kindness gave me hope, but trouble kept coming. A week later, an unmarked envelope appeared in my mailbox. Inside was a typed HOA notice claiming my front yard wildflowers violated Code 17.3a and had to be removed within 72 hours. In blue ink, someone had scrawled, "Consider this a warning." I emailed the HOA president, Greg Larson, who confirmed the notice was fake. Code 17.3a didn't exist. 2 days later, I came home to find my flower bed destroyed, petals strewn across the porch. Another envelope held a Polaroid of me planting those flowers, with "We're watching" written on the back. My skin crawled. This wasn't just petty, it was personal. I installed motion sensor cameras around the property. 3 nights later, at 2:17 a.m., they caught Evelyn, put up, stomping through my flower bed. Her face was clear in the porch light, twisted with rage. I sent the footage to Greg and the sheriff. At an emergency HOA meeting, Greg showed the video to gasps from the room. Evelyn, dressed in a pastel blazer, stood calmly and dropped a bombshell. "I have a legal claim to that land," she said, producing a folder. "My great-uncle co-owned part of that property before Willow Bend was zoned. The barn and pasture might not be hers." The room erupted. I insisted my title was clean, but Evelyn's claim sent me scrambling to my lawyer, Susan Keller, a no-nonsense property attorney. She called it a desperate ploy, filing a cease and desist letter and a counterclaim for harassment. But Evelyn wasn't done. One evening, Rusty's frantic barking woke me. I ran to the porch and saw a man in a hoodie flicking a lighter beside a red gas can. He bolted when I shouted, but I glimpsed his face young, scruffy, panicked. The next day, I knocked on doors to learn more about Evelyn. At the house next to Clara's, a man answered, holding a mug labeled Harperland Services. It was him, the man with the lighter. He introduced himself as Nathan Harper, Evelyn's son, running a fencing and appraisal business with her. My blood ran cold. I played it cool, chatting briefly before rushing home to call Susan. "He's her muscle," she said. "We're escalating." Clara provided driveway camera footage showing Nathan with a gas can near my fence. Susan filed it with the sheriff, who arrested Nathan for vandalism and trespassing. Evelyn bailed him out, screaming about outsiders stealing her land. 2 nights later, Susan called, urging me to leave. Evelyn might try something tonight. I grabbed Rusty and sped out of the driveway, my headlights catching Evelyn by the barn, lighting a diesel-soaked wreck. I doused it with a fire extinguisher as deputies arrived, chasing her into the woods. They arrested Evelyn the next day for attempted arson, trespassing, and harassment. She ranted about protecting Willow Bend as they cuffed her. The HOA banned her from all community roles, and Susan secured a restraining order. Nathan skipped town, and the county dismissed Evelyn's land claim as baseless. My barn and pasture were mine, no question. Now, I sit on my porch, Rusty at my feet, watching the sunset. The scars linger. I still check the cameras, but this land is home. I joined the garden club to keep my wildflowers blooming, and Rusty sports a sheriff's badge Clara sewed for him. Evelyn thought she could break me, but she lost everything: her power, her son's respect, her place in Willow Bend. To anyone facing a bully like Evelyn, know this: fight back with proof, allies, and grit. Evil doesn't always lurk in shadows. Sometimes it's across the street, hiding behind a smile. I won because I stood my ground. What do you think? Have you faced injustice or violence in your community? Share your story in the comments. Should people like Evelyn face harsher consequences, or is redemption possible? Let's debate. Your voice matters.